In this video, I'm going to teach you all the secrets to make a OneRepublic style song like I Ain't Worried meets Sunshine that sounds like this.
I'll be making waves and doing my own thing. I'll be surfing on a merely, ain't nobody gonna stop me. 'Cause every night, every day, yeah, I'll be making waves. I'll be making waves. 'Cause every night, every day, I'll be making waves.
So if you want to look behind the scenes of how to make a modern pop song exactly in this style, my name's Christian Hale, producer-songwriter right here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm here to break down for you all the secrets of how it's done. Alright, so the song we're going to be breaking down today is a song that I wrote and produced with a good friend of mine named Kobe James. The song is called Making Waves, and it was actually written originally for the purpose of pitch for TV and film licensing. So when you write a song for TV and film, that can actually mean quite a few different things, but in the context of this song, and in most cases when I personally write for TV and film, pretty much what it looks like is you and a buddy or you and a couple buddies get together and you just write a song. You're not actually guaranteed anything on the other side. You're not actually writing it specifically for a movie spot or seeing a commercial to picture. You're just getting together, writing a song that can hopefully serve multiple needs down the road, and then you give the song to your team of people who are connected and then can go pitch those songs for spots when the needs arise. With that, the goal is oftentimes to make a song that's just standalone, a good song that can live on its own, but can hopefully serve multiple needs over the coming months and years in the TV, film, and ad licensing space. We wanted to write a song with a confident lyric about doing your own thing, kind of in the pop style of OneRepublic, and putting that all together, we came up with the title and lyric of Making Waves, and that's sort of how this song was born. So from a workflow standpoint, Kobe and I actually did this entire song from start to fully finished mix in less than 24 hours. And the other fun thing about this is we were actually never in the room together. Kobe's a super talented artist and singer, but also a great writer and producer with his own production rig at his place, and then I had my rig here. Kobe and I have actually worked together quite a bit over the years, so we're really comfortable just passing voice memos and files back and forth to each other. So as I start to break down this song, keep in mind that some of the files are going to originate from Kobe, and they're going to come with some of his plugins already baked on, and then he gave those over to me, and then I would add some of my own plugins and processing. With that though, some of the production originated right here in my studio, and just from sending voice memos back and forth, texting lyrics back and forth, hopping on the phone and saying, hey, I have a melody idea, I have a structure idea, and then passing files back and forth. All of that in less than 24 hours ended up right here on my computer, and we put together what is now known as Making Waves. So without any further ado, let's jump into the computer and I'll start to break this song down for you. So where this whole song really started was right here with this acoustic guitar part. And this was actually recorded by Kobe at his place. He's a great guitar player, and I'm really not, to be honest. And so with that, he took the lead and quickly laid down this acoustic guitar part that in isolation sounds like this. And then I'll start breaking down some of what's going on the track. Yeah, so you get the idea. It's that fun kind of acoustic guitar part that you hear in some of the reference tracks that we were going for with this song. Let me bypass all the plugins that I have going on here, and it's important to keep in mind that Kobe did send me, and this is true of a bunch of tracks coming up that I'm going to be explaining. Kobe did send me these tracks with plugins already on there, but then I took it further and added my own plugin. So the dry files, which again have some of Kobe's processing on them, the dry acoustic sounds like this. And then just added a few things to really pop it through the speakers and just make it speak a little bit more. This Slate VMR into Pro Q doing some basic moves. S1 Imager just for a little widening right here in the chorus especially. And then Neutron Exciter just kind of saturating the upper mid-range. It's a great technique on acoustic instruments that I use all the time just to help the part of the instrument that you want to speak to really speak in the right way. And then a little bit of clip here at the end with JST Clip. All of that together gives us that nice acoustic guitar sound like this. And then let me kind of add those one at a time so you can hear what each individual plugin's doing. So as we were working on this song, we had that down, the acoustic guitar as our foundation with our chords and with our tempo that really this whole thing was born from. From there, that allowed us to be sending melodies back and forth to each other and sending lyrics back and forth to each other. But from a track standpoint, the next thing we did is we went to town, Kobe and I both, on drum programming. So let's start to take a look at some of what's going on from a drum programming standpoint. So taking a look at the session here, all of these variations of blue tracks that are now soloed up are actually all of the drum tracks. And then you can kind of see as we go throughout here, I have markers up top, kind of differentiating verse from pre-chorus, from chorus, and so on and so forth. But let me actually play all the drums for you in solo, kind of starting from the end of the verse, into the pre, and then into the chorus here. And then I'll start breaking down track by track what's going on under the hood. So here's these drums in solo. So as you can hear from that, and it's also very true of our OneRepublic reference songs, a lot of what's going on under the hood there from a drum standpoint is breakbeats and those kind of organic chop breakbeat sounds. So let me start breaking these drums down for you one track at a time and showing you under the hood of how you can start incorporating breakbeats successfully into your own productions. All right, so kind of looking at the drum arrangement here, the first thing that we have that was sort of the foundation of the drum groove is two kick drums layered together to kind of accomplish one final kick drum sound. We have this kick high, as it's called right here. Just a nice basic kick drum doing its kick drum things. And then with that, we layered this fearless kick. And if you look, we actually rolled out all the low end in it. And what this kick is doing is just a specific kind of clicky thing. Take a listen to maybe just the fearless kick in solo. Nothing but click, really. But then when you put that in with the kick high, just sort of the more standard kick, it gives that attack, and together they sound like this. I think that's a really important lesson in general when it comes to layering sounds. And you're going to see this, I think, at work in this production and several other productions that I break down. In that when you layer sounds, you don't just want to layer, let's say kick drums, for example. You don't just want to layer 10 kick drums that are all doing the same thing. You want to layer sounds together that each occupy their own specific frequency ranges and are each doing their own kind of specific thing to give you that one final sound that kind of sits in the mix exactly how you want it to. And I think this kick drum programming here is a really good example of that. Of it's not two kick drums doing the same thing layered together and then phasing out. It's two kick drums doing slightly different things, and then a third one when we add that to the chorus. 2 to 3 kick drums that layered together sound like one tight, cohesive kick drum sound. And so with that, in the chorus, we add this kick low track, which just gives our overall kick drum sound a little more punch, a little bit more impact when more instrumentation is happening in the chorus. And that in the mix here sounds like this. With it. As you hear, just giving the overall kick drum sound a little bit more punch, a little bit more impact in that chorus and differentiating it from the verse ever so slightly. But going back to the verse over here, the next thing we added from a groove standpoint were these snaps. And as you can see, we have 3 snaps layered together that, just like we talked about, all put together are kind of doing one cohesive thing. So the snaps and the kicks all together sound like this. And those were just, it looks like all Jason Evigan snaps that I got from a splice pack. That's a go-to place that I get a lot of my snaps, organic kind of drum programming sounds from Splice. Just drug those into the grid. Also added in these, looks like a Jason Evigan, the one-shot tape vibe, kind of to emphasize the backbeat of the groove, just create a little bit more interest in the verse. That sounds like this. And then to that, we layered in here this small SMOL, small snare, which is kind of functioning like a snap in this context. That with the snaps and kick drum sounds like this. get what that's doing, and then also have these clap tracks right here. So in the verse, up till this point in the song, this is kind of the backbeat of our drum programming. And so the next thing we added were some things kind of from a motion, percussion standpoint to then drive the whole groove and whole song forward. The first thing we did was we added in a hi-hat, which sounds like this in context. And I added this Avid Lo-Fi plugin to the hi-hat. This is only for Pro Tools users specifically, but other DAWs have and other third-party plugins can accomplish this sort of thing. But I do this quite a bit where I'll actually lower the sample rate and adjust the anti-alias to take a really bright hi-hat, which sounds like this. Super bright hi-hat, as you can hear, and then add lo-fi to settings kind of somewhere around this in most cases, and just ever so slightly saturates and darkens the hi-hat in the verse just to kind of limit the high frequency range so that then when the chorus hits, top end frequencies can fully be introduced and really make that chorus feel like it lifts. But all that to say, added lo-fi, which gives the hi-hats this kind of sound. And from there, layered in a couple clap tracks, which are kind of functioning with the groove like a hi-hat. The claps aren't on the backbeat, they're kind of doing an eighth note pattern with the hi-hats, which altogether sounds like this. So peeking ahead over to the chorus here, before we bring in our chopped break beats, you see that kind of from a big picture drum programming standpoint, we add in just a couple of these bigger snares and bigger claps, which do this to our groove pre-break beats. And I'm adding just a little bit of JST clip to the big snares without they sound like this. Let's hear what that's doing. And with them, you know, doing a nice kind of subtle thing just to ever so slightly help them speak, help them push through the speakers. Big fan of JST clip. You can kind of add that on anything and everything. And as you'll see in this song, I do add it to anything and everything. And it kind of almost always just works. So great plugin. I have no affiliation with JST as of the time of making this video, but big fan of that plugin. It's awesome. We also added a hi-hat track to this chorus and also brought it into the pre-chorus. But going back to the lo-fi trick that I talked about just a minute ago, notice that it's actually the same exact hi-hat loop here and right over here in the pre-chorus, but I lo-fied the hi-hat in the pre and then didn't lo-fi it on the split off track over here in the chorus, which again just kind of helps the chorus feel ever so slightly bigger. So listen to how the hi-hat sits in the mix right here, and then when the chorus hits, again, without the break beats in yet, listen to how much more the hi-hat speaks without the lo-fi on it. Just more things added to the mix to help drive the groove and the momentum of the song forward. And then to that, we also added this 16th note tambourine track that kind of just taking a look at the session, doesn't happen at all in the verses, but only happens in the chorus, as does some of this other drum programming here. But added in that tambourine track to really drive the groove and the momentum of the chorus forward, which in context sounds like this. And then really from there, the last thing with the groove was to just add in the chop break beat. Now, here's the thing about, in my opinion, adding break beats to pre-existing samples of big kicks and big snares is I think you have to decide what's going to drive the kick drum sound and the snare drum sound. Meaning, is the break beat and the kicks and snares that are in the break beat going to be your main kick and snare in the song? Or is it going to be a separate program kick and snare sample that's really going to be the backbone of your kick and snare sound in the song? In the case of Making Waves, it was the second option, where as we just broke down, we programmed in bigger kicks and bigger snares. So then what we had to do from a breakbeat standpoint was actually chop out some of the kicks and snares and filter out some of the kicks and snares so that we didn't have big phasing and flam issues. When it comes to adding breakbeats to programming, you have to be super careful about perfectly aligning kicks and snares and making sure everything's in phase. And then, like I said, choosing what's going to be my kick drum sound, what's going to be my snare drum sound, and making a very intentional decision so that you don't have things phasing and flamming with each other. So taking a look at that, we have this track right here that's our pre-chorus breakbeat, and this one over here that is our chorus breakbeat. You also see, looking ahead over here in the second verse, we have yet another breakbeat track. And kind of like with some of the other tracks I just broke down for you, I wanted to treat the pre-chorus breakbeat ever so slightly different from the chorus breakbeat, even though it actually is the same original loop. So starting from the pre-chorus here, then going into the chorus, listen to how the treatment feels slightly different from each other, then I'll show you what's under the hood. And kind of just taking a look over here at the pre-chorus breakbeat, what do you know? I'm using lo-fi. Told you I use that thing all the time. Great plugin, free in Pro Tools too. I'm also using Soothe to like really kind of, it's almost acting like an EQ in this case. Instead of EQing out all that high end, I'm using Soothe just to kind of tame that high end, but fairly aggressively, as you can see in that setting. And then I'm using Spiff just to kind of drive the mid-range forward. And then over here in the chorus breakbeat, I have lo-fi on, but I'm just using the distortion. I'm not messing with the anti-alias or sample rate at all. So it's more of the full true loop that's already been chopped coming through. And then a significantly less harsh version of Soothe, you know, just a little bit of high-end control, not all that crazy high-end being tamed. So the high-end upper mid-range speaks a little bit more than it did in the pre-chorus. From there, we added what I sometimes like to call low-hanging fruit, but in my opinion, really important low-hanging fruit with just some sweeps, risers, and impacts, which in context of the song sounds like this. That's going to be these three tracks right here. Again, super obvious low-hanging fruit. I get a lot of those sounds from Splice, literally just by searching riser, sweep, impact, crash, so on and so forth. You know, it's low-hanging fruit, but it's really important. I think it just subtly helps the listener know the chorus is here. Time for the chorus. So that's what those are doing in my mind. And really the only other thing to take a look at from a drum and groove standpoint were some fills. Let me show you a couple examples of where fills show up in the song. And for the most part, these kind of darker but lighter blue than this, but this shade of blue right here is sort of all the fills throughout the song. You can kind of see that they happen sporadically. I'll show you a couple examples, then I'll break down for you how I would go about making fills and how we did it in this song. Here's another example of a place where fills happen in the song. To me, in a song like this, one of the differentiators for making the song good or even pretty good and taking it from there to really great next level is taking the time to make those detail moves and add in drum fills. To be honest, they're kind of a pain in the butt to chop up and get them to sit exactly how you want, but it's a big differentiator in my mind from taking your production from just okay to really great and next level. But as far as how I actually made those fills, and I do this kind of a lot, the same concept a lot in pop music in general, but especially in breakbeats, is I have just sample libraries filled with breakbeats, and as you can see, I've really kind of mangled up various breakbeat loops. Like our BPM is 127 here, and it looks like the original BPM of this fill loop I popped in was 128, so I sped it up quite a bit. And then just it was a matter of kind of pulling in sounds and mangling them together. You know, like I have this Tom Weird track right here that in solo sounds like this. Like sounds kind of whack on its own. And then I have this ramp up right here sort of doing its thing. And then I have this loop right here, which I said was just a fill I found in a breakbeat pack, but sped it up 20 BPM, that on its own sounds like this. And you see I added Sound Toys Decapitator to it just to give it a little more drive, a little more character. And then on the ramp here, added a little spring reverb. But putting all those fill tracks together, we have something that works and it sounds like this. And then when you put all that together in the context of the drum track, you have something that sounds like this. And to give those drums now just a little bit more context, let's listen to those in the instrumental. I'll just start it from the intro and you can hear now through a different lens of how those are functioning in the track. And to demonstrate my point about the importance of fills, what I want to do now is just play the intro of the song, and I'm going to eliminate all those fill tracks just so you can hear how much those are really doing. Here's the intro into the verse without the fills. Again, it sounds fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but the difference between that and this, when you add those fills back in, to me, again, it's just the difference between something that sounds good and something that sounds just that next level up. Listen to the difference. Fairly significant difference there, if you ask me. So after drums and after acoustic guitar, the next thing we did is we laid down some bass, which standalone sounds like this. And in context, just with the drums and just with the acoustic guitar, that bass sounds like this. Break down for you what's actually going on that bass from a plugin and mix standpoint. So the dry bass that Kobe sent, which again I think had some plugins on it already, it sounds like this. And from there I added this Tony Maserati B72 set like this. I use that quite a bit on bass. And then from there I used Acoustica Ruby. I have to run Acoustica Ruby through this DDMF Meta plugin, which is a great plugin. Side note on this plugin, it allows you to use things on Apple Silicon that actually aren't Silicon native. And for me, just switching to Silicon as the time I'm making this video has been a game changer. So as the time I make this video, Acoustica Ruby is a plugin that I can't run native in Pro Tools without Rosetta, but using Meta plugin, I can run Ruby and several other plugins without having to use Rosetta in native Pro Tools. So again, no association with them, but absolutely incredible plugin right there. I don't know how they make it work, but you can run any of your plugins in here and it's given me no hiccups, no problems whatsoever. So doing a little bit of Ruby. This thing, the low boost on Ruby is really the magic of Ruby. Expensive, super sounding, low end, kind of modeled after the DW Fern VT5 EQ. Those two together sound like this. Then I'll show you one other thing I have going on the bass. And then I sent all that to this parallel bass drive. And I don't do this all the time, but for some reason in this song, I felt like it was the play. Just sent it in parallel to this decapitator on the punish mode, giving you a sound like this. With it. And then from there, I sort of just snuck in this sub bass that sounds just with the other bass like this. And after the real bass, which really is the majority of the bass sound, we also snuck in a sub bass, doing a little bit of sidechain pumping through Waves One Knob Pumper. I'll break down my settings for you in a second. That sub bass sounds like this on its own. And without those plugins, and I'm just, a little bit of the distortion on lo-fi right here. That distortion set somewhere around there is a great thing on basses, 808s. You saw it kind of all throughout my drum production. Great setting right there. After that, neutron transient shaper set like this to kind of make the 808 sub bass speak a little more. And then one knob pumper to do a quick and dirty sidechain sound. All that together gives the sub bass this sound. And in with the bass. And as you can see, just strictly visually from the song, there's no bass at all in the verses or pre-chorus. The basses only happen in the chorus, and that's just one other way that we help those choruses lift ever so slightly. There's not all that big bassy low end at all in the verses. I think the electric and acoustic guitars might be the most low end we have in an instrument, aside from drums, in any of the verses and any of the pre-choruses. But then all of a sudden, in comes big round low end in the choruses, and that's just one other little move we're making to help your choruses lift just a little bit more. So try that technique. Don't have a bass all the way in through a song. Or if in your own productions you do have a bass in the verse, maybe change the sound of the bass or make it have a little bit more subharmonic info, a little bit more low end in the choruses, just to make your sections differentiate themselves from one section to the next. I think that's a great tip that'll help you up the level of your productions just ever so slightly. All right, from there we added some electric guitar production, and really these red tracks looking at my session are the electric guitar tracks. So we have really only 3 tracks of electric guitar, and spoiler alert, these two are pretty much the same exact thing, just treated ever so slightly different. So what the main electric guitar part sounds like is this, and it really kind of is the main backbone from a music and instrumentation standpoint of the verse. Sounds like this, then I'll add it in context to the track. So let me take all the plugins off of that electric guitar and show you what we started with. And again, when I say all the plugins off, I do believe that Kobe tracked this electric guitar at his place too. I think that he did have a little bit of processing going on, but then I added quite a bit more, and I'll show you kind of plugin by plugin how I'm making it sit in the mix how I want it to. But Kobe's dry electric sounded like this. And one plugin at a time, I added this API 550. This is kind of my standard electric guitar mix chain that I use in a variety of songs and variety of styles. This chain I'm about to break down for you just works very well 99% of the time, and you can just modify it ever so slightly. But the API 550 into FabFilter Pro Q3, just modify these moves to your song, but pretty subtle. Into CLA 3A, into JST Clip. Told you guys this plugin's awesome. I have no JST affiliation, but JST, if you're watching, I use this plugin all the time, have for years. Big fan. Thanks for what you do. Into good old OTT, subtle, dialed back, 18% depth and 37% down here. Responsible OTT. And then Soothe. I think there was just a funny frequency in this that Soothe was doing. Those sound like this. And let me add them in one plugin at a time so you can really hear what's going on. And then the other big thing we did to this guitar is we added spring reverb, and I'm just using the cheapo, I think this is free with Pro Tools, the 11 rack plugin, black spring reverb. It's a 60s Fender style spring reverb, but honestly, any spring reverb plugin will work great. But when doing a song like this, it's kind of a nod back to 60s surf music. I Ain't Worried by OneRepublic especially nods back to that era, and a lot of the sound of the Beach Boys 60s guitar era was super drippy, wet spring reverb. So obviously in Making Making Waves and OneRepublic did the same thing, and I Ain't Worried. You're taking a more modern approach to a 60s kind of thing, but I think it's fun to kind of pay tribute to that, and adding spring reverb heavily in some cases to the guitars was an easy way to kind of take us back to the 60s and give us that kind of vibe we were going for. So spring reverb on the guitars gives us this sound. And while we're on the train of spring reverb, over here in the pre-chorus also added these super dripped out, spring reverbed out octave stabs that sound like this. And really, from a guitar production standpoint, that's all there is going in the song. There's really not much at all. There's that electric guitar in the verse, happens over here again in verse 2, and then the spring stabs in the pre and later on in the bridge, but that's really it. Again, showing you that in context, that sounds like this in the instrumental. All right, so that's a wrap here on part 1 of how to write and produce a modern pop song like OneRepublic's I Ain't Worried or Sunshine. First, want to give a big shout out to my buddy Kobe James for working on this song with me and writing this with me. Super fun to get to work on this with Kobe. Everyone, go check out Kobe's music on Apple Music or Spotify, right here on YouTube as well, and give him a follow on all his social media platforms. If this video brought value to you, would you consider liking this video, dropping a comment down below on what you'd like to see more of, and ringing that notification bell for more content just like this, specifically part 2 of this video, which will be coming out to you very soon. So keep a lookout for part 2 to see even more content just like this and to see the rest of how we wrote and produced this song. And since you made it to the end of this video, I wanted to let you know about a brand new service I'm now offering and have available to you. If you're a music maker at any level needing a second set of ears and professional perspective on your song, production, or mix, I'm now offering this to you to help maximize the quality of your songs and productions. It's so easy to sign up to get feedback on your song. Just visit my website, christianhale.co/songfeedback, and fill out the form at the bottom of that page to get started. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.